You be humble and you be authentic. Nobody can be you the way that you can be you, and nobody can bring what you bring to the table the way that you bring it. If you stay in your lane and you do you, then you will stand out.
Welcome to the very first segment of ProfessionXplore 2025. As you would know that this is an annual series that we do in the first quarter of each year, and the aim is to speak to these three categories of people. It is to speak to the youth who are yet to go to university or higher learning institutions, who are yet going to explore different courses. And secondly, to corporates who are maybe wanting to go back to school after having served in the industry for years. And thirdly, for businesswomen who want to venture out into other businesses, other fields, because we do also do have like invites of businesswomen who also have ventured out before from a corporate world. And so we are back here this year, and I'm not alone. I have my very first guest. Her name is Smiso Sikakane, and she is a Master of Education. I will allow her to greet herself, greet the viewers, and welcome.
Hi, how are you, everyone? It's such an honor to be here. Thank you very much for having me.
Definitely.
Luthando.
Thank
I
you for
really
honoring
appreciate it.
the invitation.
Thank you. I'm
And-
excited, and I can't wait to hear what the conversations, where the conversations takes us. But yeah, really
Most
excited. Thank you
definitely.
for having me.
Most definitely. And you look stunning.
Thank you. I tried. Look, I never really do the whole makeup thing, but today I said, "Ooh, I'm going on camera."
Let me
Let me show
live.
myself.
Let me do the things.
It's such an honor. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Thank you, Smiso. And for those who are coming here for the first time, my name is Luthando, affectionately known as Luqobo, and I'll be your host. So we'll go straight to our segment, and I'll first just give you a little bit of a background of our guest today. I'm definitely going to read the bio. So she's an experienced lecturer. Let me say actually that she was a colleague, a fellow colleague. We're both lecturing at the same institution, 2024. So she's an experienced lecturer, a childhood education specialist, and a voiceover artist. Yeah. So this is her bio. I am dedicated and experienced educator with a deep passion for childhood education, with extensive experience in teaching and learning with higher education. I have had the privilege of lecturing first to fourth year students through foundation phase modules, helping to shape future educators and foster a love for teaching young learners. Beyond the academia space, I'm also a seasoned voiceover artist with a background in anchoring and narration. My voiceover projects have spanned various formats, bringing creativity and versatility, to each role. Now, driven by a commitment to quality education and a love for expressive communication, I continuously seek opportunities to grow in both fields. That is amazing. A very seasoned young woman. Yes, it is, girl. That is why we brought you here. We want to hear all about your journey. But the first thing I want to ask is, who is Usmi? So you know your background, a bit about your upbringing up until say high school.
Wow, it's interesting that you asking me this question, because I think as you grow, the answers change, all the time, because you're not the same person that you were in high school, and you're not the same person that you were in primary. I'm now a working professional, so that answer has definitely developed and it's grown. But Usmiso originally is born and raised in Southwestern Township, Soweto. So I'm originally from Gauteng, Johannesburg, and specifically in the Southwestern Township. That's where my parents raised me. So Kingwanako Kasi, I'm a Kasi girl, believe it or not. So yeah, I am that's who I am. That's where I was raised. And then, I have both my parents, which I think is such a blessing.
That's a blessing.
In,
Both
in my
alive.
life. Both alive,
That's a
married.
blessing.
They're going on 40 years.
What?
So
That's a
yeah,
blessing.
also an inspiration.
That's
to
really a
love.
blessing and inspiration.
Yeah. So yes, they're still together, and they raised me and my older siblings. So
Yeah.
I've got an older sibling as well. And yeah, we are from the southwestern township, and Smiso is really just this adventurous spirit. I like calling myself adventurous because I like trying new things, and I like opening myself up to spaces. And rest assured, some spaces have rejection, and some spaces are, affirming, and they're saying you belong here.
Okay.
So I'm that person. I have a very, I've always got this willingness to learn and to see. I'm very observant. So, once I observe and I see that this is how things are done, I grab onto it easily, and then I give it my best shot. So I definitely have this willingness and observant spirit as well. And yeah, Usmiso went to very good schools also that shaped her.
Okay.
I actually found my religious standing and I guess foundation in primary school. So I went to a school named Northwest Christian School. And it was a very we had praise and worship.
Oh, okay. Were you in the choir?
I was.
Okay.
Definitely in the choir. Got an opportunity to sing. And yeah, just the routine of the school was very much grounded on, Christianity and believing in God. And so I remember this one praise and worship session. I then gave my life to Jesus. I asked Jesus to be in my life and be
Wonderful.
in my heart. And, I've never changed ever since. And
Wonderful.
I think, I'll always be grateful for that praise and worship session, because that's the praise and worship that I invited God into my life. Once I realized and understood who God was, from the teachings that I had gotten. So yes, that was primary school, and it came with its challenges. Just to go a bit back, I am a winter baby, and I was born on the 7th of July, 1995.
I was born on the 22nd of July.
Yeah, July babies, we are the best. We are the best. I'm going to be biased in saying we are the best. So I was born in Morningside Hospital, and I came in critical state. My health was very much, tested. So when I was 4 months, they discovered that I've got a heart condition.
Is it?
And yeah, and it was quite intense from the stories that my parents have told me, which I hope we get an opportunity to unpack. But yeah, 4 months was when they discovered that my aortic valve was not aortic valving.
It was not valving.
It was not aortic valving. That's really the best way to put it. Why do I say that? Because just the blood flow was compromised. So I really then had to go in for heart surgery, my first heart surgery.
Wow.
4 months, and my parents.
You were 4 months when you had a heart surgery.
Yes, 4 months.
Intense.
4 months. They call me the miracle baby at home, and I think I'll always just be a baby in my parents' eyes. Doesn't matter how much I'm turning.
Of course.
By the way, I'm turning 30 this year, but I think I'm still gonna be a baby in their eyes for such reasons. Where just this miracle during her childhood was just. Yeah, no, God was there. So I had my first heart surgery, and they were with me throughout. And I love the story that my mom tells. She tells me the story of my grandfather. So my grandfather was Solomon Sikakane, and him and I were very close. Like, I've got childhood memories where we did things together and so forth. But apparently, when I was in my, I guess, fighting for my health and fighting for my life, my grandfather, Solomon, declared that she's a fighter, and told my parents and turned to my mom, and she was like, she's a fighter, Koti. She's going to make it. I can see, I can tell. Apparently, all the troops were on me, and I was gone. I was fast asleep, But he declared, these words, and with his prayers, and sort of named me the tigress. So, a fighting tigress who's always just, fighting for her life and making it. So, I think ever since my mom told me that story, I really then, as I said, our who is Smiso changes all the time. I edited it to be like, she's also the fighting tigress because her grandfather spoke that over her. So yeah, I then grew up, and then I had a second one. Because the aortic valve was just not cooperating once again. And then the one I can remember is when I was a teenager. I was 14. So I've also had the opportunity to look at my doctor's files and sort of see these dates and stuff. So that's how I know that I was 14 with my final one. And yeah, I think it was a journey, and I remember from beginning to end, today. And that just really just explains the type of childhood that I had. Smiso Sikakane didn't have your normal childhood where, you're running around doing whatever and you are 100% healthy. There were restrictions. In primary, I wasn't allowed to do sports. There were restrictions in terms of you can do all the cultural stuff. So your public speaking, not surprised that I'm here.
Of course.
But sports, like, you weren't allowed. And then in high school, I remember playing hockey, and that excited me so much because of the fact that, I couldn't really do like these activities when I was younger due to my health. So yes, a very complicated, sickly childhood, and other things develop, because you must understand the heart is a very important organ.
Correct.
So when it's interrupted and it's compromised, it will compromise other parts, including my eyes. So I then had to also have 2 eye surgeries as well.
Jeez, that's a lot.
It is a lot. And I remember the eye surgeries. I remember both of them very well. Very painful. Don't wish it upon anyone. But yeah, those eye surgeries took place, and I can see clearly now.
Okay, pun intended. Tell me.
I just had to. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Would you say then your childhood experience, that whole journey, informed even the course that you took, because you are a childhood education specialist? Was that informed by your very own childhood?
I would say yes, and I would say no. So after that complicated, journey of a sickly childhood, I applied. I mean, in varsity. I went to Northcliffe High School, also very good high school, that also molded me and sort of raised me. But then I applied at, university, and I applied for journalism. Funny enough, I wanted to be a journalist. I liked news, so I was like, oh, let's put the news out there. And then and my second choice was then teaching. But then the university came back to me, and they accepted me for teaching, and the journalism application was pending for the longest time. So I then decided, oh, okay, maybe, this is the path that I'm called into. Let me go for it.
You were being directed.
Yeah, I'm being directed, and I think what called me to childhood, to answer your question, was just the first time I interacted with children in a classroom when we were doing our practicals. The university has a beautiful program that allows for you to do your practicals.
Which university is that?
University of Johannesburg. So UJ is, I highly recommend doing a B.Ed in foundation.
UJ alumni.
UJ. Apply. But I highly recommend, if you're interested in doing teaching, foundation phase teaching, best pick. I'm just saying.
Interesting.
Best pick. When I interacted with the kids for the very first time, I was sold. I was like, amazing. Oh no, I am called, and we have a teaching school as well in the university, which allowed us to interact with these children. So I remember my very first practical. It was such a one-on-one engagement with the children, and I enjoyed it. And I was like, no, this is the path.
That's amazing, and thank you for sharing that. And I hope if you are there and considering doing childhood education, ECDC, is it ECDC?
So it's early childhood education, but it's mostly foundation phase. So an education in foundation phase and looking at early childhood. Yeah.
Here's a funny thing. I actually think ECDC is a department. I'm just reminded. I know ECDC.
No.
It's a department that I know somewhere in Tad. Anyway, ECD, right?
ECD.
Oh, it's not
ECD
far.
does it.
I just added another. I thought let me put that out there. So we're coming on nicely. I just want to now ask like now that you're a master of education, take us through that particular academic journey and how it shaped your academic profile. Now this is your varsity. We passed high school and you're in varsity, and you probably even graduated at least undergrad.
Yes.
And now we are going into the masters. If you like, I can summarize the undergrad, but we want to know now the big guns.
The big guns. How is one titled Master of Education today? I think it's such a blessing, first and foremost.
Yeah.
I think unpacking.
I'm doing my master's this year, by the way. I'm resuming because I dropped out years ago.
Yes, you're gonna obtain.
I'm coming back to master's.
It's yours. It's yours.
I was supposed to be a professor by now. But life happened. But let's acknowledge that I'm coming back this year to
Let's acknowledge the path and the purpose. Your time of professorship is waiting for you, no definitely. Doubt. All the best with that, by the way. I really wish
I'll be giving you
calls. And I'll be behind you. I mean, I'm your fan.
Yeah,
big time. So the master's journey, wow, also a very interesting question. I was very supported by the institution during undergrad. So I had sponsorship with my undergraduate, and they sponsored me to do my degree, and then they also recommended me for a sponsorship for my honors. UJ.
Guys, UJ.
UJ. No, wow. Props to them for really just supporting my journey and taking me from the ground up. So I then the sponsorship, the people that were involved, I had one of them then handpick me to say, we want to supervise you for masters.
Oh, wow.
We think you should do your masters, and at the same time they then offered me, and I say offered because that's how it happened. I didn't apply. They saw my contributions in the department, and they acknowledged the fact that I'm a long-standing student and sort of colleague, because I then started as a tutor coordinator. They offered me a tutor coordinator job, and this was while I was completing my honors. So I then finished my honors, and then they now offer me a position as an assistant lecturer, which was my first lecturing post. And what went hand in hand with that is now completing my master's. So it was part of my contract. And it was to be very, very honest with you, it was an intense journey. It was extremely intense. You expect the intensity of pressure and submissions and deadlines, and you coming into contact with this complex research journey that you're doing for the very first time. So it requires mentorship. It requires people to be behind you. And to be very, very, very honest with you, Luthando, I had that, but the journey in itself just took a completely different wavelength. Because now as a colleague in the institution, there was just disalignment. I want to use that word, and that disalignment caused me to then resign. I couldn't be in the space anymore. I also feel like I was not valued in the space anymore.
Okay.
So I then got to a point where I resigned. And now what does that leave me with? It leaves me with, you are not a colleague anymore in the institution, but you are still a student. So there's still this bit that you've got to grapple with. And I don't want to lie, the resignation really had implications. So it caused it actually increased the intensity.
Okay.
The master's journey in itself is already intense, but because there were so many things attached to it, myself as a student, after resigning, I had there were just implications, and there were just experiences that were very unpleasant. And I want to focus on how I navigated myself through the unpleasantness of the journey. I navigated myself by firstly praying and saying to God, look, we have this journey. It's with us, and it has to come to completion.
Correct.
Because I've put in work. You do chapters, you do submissions, but because of the lack of just I guess the implications that it had after I was now resigned as a colleague, there was a lack of a lot of things from my side, to be very honest, and even from the institution side. But I want to be accountable to the fact that I also lacked. So I'm not taking my submissions as seriously anymore. I'm falling short in so many ways, and I think these are the uncomfortable conversations that people don't really put out there, but it's important to talk about them, because you need to realize that they do become part of your journey.
Correct.
In becoming a master. So falling short, and submissions not taken seriously, communication is just not great. There's just disrespect involved. There's a lot of things that are just unpleasant, that made it even much more hard, and much more intense. And I was sticking with my God and Savior, and I was saying, Lord, this is the experience now. It was an experience, and it was okay. We turn to God, we speak to God. This is what I'm going through now. What now? And I must say, even to the point that I wanted to quit. I looked at how much work I had done, and I acknowledged that I'd done quite a few, and a lot. So I felt, I can always start again. We can always press the restart button, because you do get to that point in a journey where you feel like this is not working.
Correct.
And let's just do it again. And I got to that point where I felt it's not working, let me restart. But my mentors, my very amazing mentors that I'm grateful to God about, they encouraged, and they said, no, my darling, you've done a lot of work. Finish this. This is a journey to be finished. Also, the intensity of your challenges, because you are so young, but yet you are grappling through, and you're going through these challenges. One of my mentors said, it's definitely, evident that it's a journey that you must complete, and
Correct.
only you. And I said, but it's becoming, I can't, it's heavy on me, because it was really heavy. Tears, just the quitting attitude, even to a point where I was suicidal, like suicidal thoughts.
Wow.
Suicidal thoughts definitely creeped in, where I was like, Lord, I'm actually happy with my life. Then again, you saved it when I was a child. I've lived my life. I'm suicidal in the sense that the thoughts are the idea of dying, and just putting my life at rest was more there, not so much the attempt. So I don't want to say I attempted suicide, because I've never attempted, but just the willingness to die. Oh, definitely. During my master's journey, I can promise you, it was just over and over. So, by the grace of God, I get to a position where we're finding our feet with the people that are helping me in this journey. And, after dropping me, after, then coming back, and we finding ground. in communicating and saying, listen, at the end of the day, this is the journey. And yes, we know that there are decisions that were made where people are not happy, but at the end of the day, it's okay. And you know what? We are here, so let us complete it and complete it to the best of our ability. And that's what happened.
And you did.
I completed it. And even the completion came with restrictions because I was told that, because of everything that has taken place, the mark that will be awarded to me is 50% after all my hard efforts. And I wasn't comfortable with that. It didn't make sense to me, but I prayed. And this is where I want to highlight the power of prayer in any journey you partake in. Pray first above all else. And I think make your prayer very intentional and very specific.
Correct.
Because it's one thing to say to God, God, please help me, but please help me with what? What is the problem? And I learned in my spiritual journey and in my spiritual growth that the God we serve and the God we pray to is the type of God that wants to hear it all. So even when you are struggling and you are wanting to, articulate what is it exactly that you're struggling with, you need to be specific. So I would lay it on the table to God. I'm getting this master's and it's coming to an end, and I thank you that we've gotten this far, but I will not take 50%.
I want to just say, one, I'm glad that you mentioned the personal effects of your journey in academia, because when we're talking masters, when we're talking PhD, we only, what tickles our fancies is just that kind of like status, that title, and we don't really talk about the excruciating journey that comes with being a master of this, a professor of that. So I'm very happy that you are expressing that. Actually, I also played a role in that excruciating journey where I didn't take submissions seriously, where maybe I lazied around a bit here and there.
Yeah.
So I like that you are taking that kind of accountability, because you could be sitting here saying, I'm a master of education, and then glory to you. But it's good that you are saying, hey, for me to get there, this was the journey, and
100%.
these were the difficulties I had faced from the institution side, but these were the difficulties that I brought upon myself.
Absolutely.
And I love it so much that you are even mentioning it even led to a point where you had suicidal thoughts. And I'm liking this one because I think in recent years, it was so popular that high scholars, especially matriculants, after receiving their results, felt like they would actually commit suicide. So, and it was really popular just in that, not really in like your higher learning institutions and universities. So it gladdens me that you are mentioning that actually this is the reality that you can come across as well in university. I mean, at master's level, if I'm at grade 12, I'm like, why do you want to kill yourself? You've made it already.
And I'm a working, and don't underestimate the fact that I'm a working professional.
Yes.
So I'm working and I'm completing.
So we're like, no, actually.
It's the reality of the fact.
Correct.
We cannot hide that. We cannot hide that. It definitely. And it even made me more scared of growing up further, because I'm like, oh no,
growing up is a trap.
In my 40s.
Growing up is a trap.
Yeah.
I remember when I dropped out from my master's in 2016. I was doing my master's in 2016. And when I would share this, I would get like that kind of a look that's like, who drops out on masters? You've already made it. Why are you dropping out? Why? No, it's like you are being petty and stuff. But I also went through a lot during my master's, which also included a loss of my supervisor, but not to death. But there were just departmental complications, and then I ended up not having a supervisor. I had already defended, bruh. I had already defended.
You had already defended.
But then everything started mounting up. I didn't have a supervisor. I couldn't proceed. And then I'm not ashamed to even say there were also just some like unfair and racist, systems that were put in place. which were also the reason why we lost our supervisor. It was not me alone, but then I was like, you know what, I'm never going to make it in this institution right now, so let me just quit. So then I do understand where you're coming from, where you could be like, you know what, let me just exit the earth.
and I think it's amazing that you're sharing what you just shared, because it just shows then it must be a thing, because if you're saying that there were departmental issues and there was a level of unfairness, and you lost your supervisors, dear, they had dropped me and I had lost my supervisors, and they were just, it was layer after layer after layer. But I said, not with the God I serve. I don't know, maybe that fighting spirit that my grandpa Solomon said, bless his soul,
lioness,
that's bless wonderful. His soul, yeah. But I really was just like, that fighting spirit needs to be shown in this journey.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Let's take that fighting spirit to this next question.
Okay.
I think I would like us to have you take us through your teaching and learning experience.
Okay.
Particularly lecturing like foundation phase modules, and if you can, even take us through the actual modules themselves. Because remember also, if we're talking to the youth who want to venture or explore your course, they want to have an idea of the kind of modules that they will be dealing with. So take us through that teaching and learning experience.
No, Devs, I'm happy to. So obviously in me now, having completed my master's, and also while completing my master's, I'm a lecturer, and I've got the opportunity, both at this institution that I was completing my master's in, and also now the one I currently work in, which is Rosebank College, specifically the Cape Town campus. So that's where I'm lecturing currently. I'm now lecturing modules that pertain becoming a teacher in the foundation phase level. So, you're coming across modules that groom students and really shape students and highlight to students what does it really mean
modules such as
to become a foundation phase teacher. So we're looking at teaching methodology. So the method of teaching, what are the semantics and what are the fundamentals that are involved in teaching foundation phase. So those of you who don't know what foundation phase is, it's you're looking at grade R up until grade 3. And then we've got the early childhood, which is mostly your 2 to 4 year olds. So I'm experienced in both. I'm experienced in teaching in grooming teachers to teach 2 to 4 year olds in educare centers, so your creche, I know we call it creche here in South Africa. So and your educare centers, and also then primary school, which you teach at a level of grade R to grade 3. So I have experience in that, firstly, and secondly, I then get the opportunity to teach students how to be prepared as teachers in that. So you're looking at then your teaching methodology, you're looking at your teaching studies, you're looking at the education studies, which I loved because it looks at the environment that is important for the child, and the type of domains that the child grows in. So your cognitive, your emotional, your social, your physical domain. And it sounds very simple when you throw it out there, like, oh, physical, social, that means they must talk. That, yes, but how do you get them there, I think, is the important thing to realize.
That's interesting.
And what I find in me teaching students is I always, in how I teach, try to always remind them that it's important that they realize that they are the agents of developing those domains, and how it's not for them. The job doesn't start and end with just standing in front of the classroom and teaching foundation phase learners. It's beyond that. You have to play with primary school kids, and you have to play with the early childhood, the 2 to 4 year olds. Because in the playing, my master's study was looking at how we can guide foundation phase teachers.
Wonderful.
On how to use guided play when teaching as a core pedagogy when teaching foundation phase learners. So how do we use the guided play? And guided play is just one form of play. There's a lot that I could explore, and if I wish I had the time where I can really
just give us two more.
So there's free play. There's free play as well, and there's pretend play that you have as well, which all play a fundamental role in a foundation phase learner, growing in their social domain, growing in their cognitive domain.
What's the difference between free play and pretend play?
So free play is, I guess, they decide, and they are the deciding agents, and they take control. So if I've got different toys on the floor, I've got maybe Legos, and I've got a number mat, and I've got balls, and they come into that playing space, and they can choose, okay, I'm going to do Lego, you can go do the play mat, and I'll do like the balls, and I'll play with the balls. So that would be your free play. And then your pretend play would be more of playing in the form of thinking about real life scenarios. So pretend play is something that even I enjoyed as a child.
Is it when I can make tea?
Yes, so you make tea and
and then pretend to drink it.
And pretend to drink and even cook. So
it's called pretend play.
I cook,
you did pretend play when you're growing up.
It's a thing. Pretend play is a thing. So you basically are at a position where you allow the child to, even piggyback. So I remember when I was a child, the pretend play was so nice because I had dolls and I used to piggyback them, and in babelete, in my language we call it beleta. And I used to, ensure that I pretend I'm a mother, and we'd play and we'd go to the shops, we'd pretend we have money, because they're also learning, what are the realities of life. There's money which
wonderful.
They need to buy things, and they learn that through pretend play.
You know what I'm reminded of is when we used to play poppies growing up.
Yeah.
And then when it's time to sleep, we'd pretend that we're snoring, snoring, and then all of a sudden, like it's in the morning.
Absolutely. You know what I'm talking about. You're within. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Oh. Yeah. So exactly. That's
pretend play.
What does? Let's go deep into that. That signifies there's an alarm, and it can come in the form of chickens, and so that they know that, and they learn that exactly, and they can't learn it if there's no pretend play. So, and then you get now the more, I guess I would call it classroom based and very much involving the teacher and the child in coordination and facilitating, where it's the guided play, which was what my master's studies was on, where the child agency is there, where the child gets to decide, in terms of the playing semantics, but the teacher is there to guide and to instruct.
Wonderful.
And to state, okay, this is how the game is played and so forth. So those teachers, my data was having and facilitating a program where teachers would play. I had them play. I said, I want to know if you are doing this in the classroom. Let's navigate it.
You do such an amazing job. You do such an amazing job.
So yeah, I think to really sum it up, that's pretty much what the job comes with. It's really preparing students and becoming like pre-service teachers, that this is what to expect, this is what we are looking for, and more so just the environment you create in the classroom, the methodologies that you use, so the teaching strategies that you use. And also, I must highlight, please giving me an opportunity to say, knowing your content knowledge, knowing what it is that you are teaching, because you are teaching a very delicate phase. You're teaching foundation phase. So it's important to realize that the phase that you are teaching, they don't know anything. The information that you put in those brains is what they will take, and what they will grow up with. I will always remember how to spell Wednesday because my teacher always broke it up in a simple syllabus way. Wednesday. day. So I know Wednesday is how you spell Wednesday. So every time I spell Wednesday, I always have that song and that technique in my mind because that's what my foundation phase teacher taught me. So I always highlight to students, it's important that you know your knowledge and you know how best to reach, children. Especially that especially in this era, I'm finding that there are a lot of children who are born with different barriers and barriers to learning, and they need the support, and so as a teacher you need to be equipped to face that music in the classroom and so forth. So yeah,
that's wonderful.
It's interesting. It's very interesting. It's a beautiful environment to be
in.
Wait.
Anyway, so
Wednesday.
Given your commitment to quality education, and so then when you observe our education system as South Africa over the years, what is your take on our current disposition in learning institution, especially as far as quality education is concerned? Quality and equality, if you like.
I would say that there are positives, really great positives, and there are also negatives, or rather challenges, I would like to phrase, that we can look into, as people who are, number one, partaking in the education system, and also who have a say to some extent, in the spaces that we are in. As someone who's in childhood education, and having explained that it's a very delicate phase and it's important that teachers know what they are up for, I'm finding that the education system is allowing and is putting just anyone in those spaces that are very delicate. So what do I mean by that? I cannot not know what cognition is, or the physical domain, or the social domain of the child, and the necessities that come with what the child needs to know, and then be put in a classroom to teach those very children. The knowledge needs to be there firstly, and the practice also. I must have some foundation of the practice of it, and I find that Luthando, you getting, and especially given that in my workspace, I've got the opportunity to go into schools while observing my students, but having conversations and picking up that teachers are just thrown into the dead end and the deep end, and there's no groundbreaking foundation that allows them to execute their job as well as they could. So for me, I'm finding that that's a very huge gap in our education system, where we're putting teachers in spaces where they're thrown in the deep end, and but they're not equipped to address and to teach and to ensure that our students and the future of our generation, to be very honest, have the knowledge and have the means and have the skills to be able to go out there and face the world and face the music of what the world brings. So, and that starts from the phase that I'm specialized in childhood. I have encountered students, or learners rather, who are in grade 4, who are in grade 5, who don't know how to read. Who don't know how to read. You give them a comprehension, and you ask them to read, and you find that simple sentences, which is now back to where you would have learned and you would have discovered in foundation phase, they don't know how to read. So even the relationship between a book and them is very foreign, because where was the foundation of the reading readiness, and the teachers that were there before? Because you must understand, for that child to get to grade 4 and 5, they must have gotten through educare. I'm going to start at educare, 2 to 4 years old. They must have gotten through grade R, grade RR, grade R, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3.
There's a grade RR.
There's a grade RR. There's a grade RR, which is the more of the educare space. And they must have gotten through those steps in order to reach the step of grade 4 and 5. So my question then is, the agents that were in the previous steps, their role, how did they play it? And were they equipped? and were they ready to support the student or the learner, and I find that in our education system, I'm not going to lie, and having visited schools and having had conversations, teachers are thrown in the deep end. How can we help teachers today? And this is a question where I know we don't have the solution to, but we can brainstorm as people who are in the space.
I like
and
that.
and people who are upcoming in the space. Even you as pre-service teachers, if you're studying to become a teacher, think about the fact that how can I equip myself or ensure that I'm equipped for the classroom space and ensuring our learners are not set up for failure, but rather set up for success. And what does that mean? That means what type of support is required for teachers, and I often hear the workshops, teachers get workshops and so forth. Yes, but is there a consistency of the workshopping? Is there consistency of the grooming?
Is there even an evaluation?
An evaluation,
because you can do workshops like each year, each quarter,
exactly,
but then you don't evaluate. How are they even working? Are they even working? Are they even applied the way they were facilitated or whatever? So would you say that this, I'll call it negligence for lack of a better word, would you say it is in, would you say it's informed by the teachers themselves not taking the trainings, whatever, seriously, or taking it upon themselves to be trained? Or is it from the government side where, I don't know, I mean, they could say anything from budget strain, for us to host these workshops or to equip the teachers? Because then the question is, the teachers are there, why are they not being equipped? So, like, where is the missing link? Is it from the teachers themselves, or is it on the other side?
I have a very
or a contribution from both?
It's a beautiful question. I'm so happy you asked it. It's both. It's
Okay.
both.
Fair,
It's both.
fair enough.
It's both. I think the willingness from the teachers to extend their knowledge and to equip themselves and to ensure that there's this readiness and preparation that goes into them preparing themselves as well and ensuring that they are ready for the classroom space, from a point of, yes, attending these trainings, but also from a point of, I need to know more, I want to know more, there's discrepancies, there's a lot that I don't know, so being able to get to a place where you are introspecting and you are finding that this space that you are in, you love it and you want to serve in it as much as possible, but you're not really equipped knowledge wise and you don't really know the do's and don'ts. So how can you get to a place where of knowing? And by the way, I'm not promoting this knowing from a point of you'll be perfect. I am still learning till today, even though I, have obtained my master's and I lecture and I engage with students. My students teach me things. And I always tell them, I'm like, trust me, in as much as I'm your lecturer, but I learn so much from you as my students. So, because you then further yourself into finding out, okay, how do we approach this scenarios? There's so many scenarios in the classroom space.
I'm satisfied.
But you don't have the answer to them all. So it's them from their point, but also the government. We live in the economy that we live in.
That we know.
the world that we live in and our country being in the state that it's in. So you look at the fact that, yes, perhaps a teacher would like to further, perhaps a teacher would like to ensure that there's this readiness and preparation from their side. But how, as the government, can I support that? Even from a resources perspective. If I walked some of the schools that I've walked into, I'm looking at the allocation of resources and I'm like, oh, this is not loving our children and setting up our children for success. This is letting our children down and not doing justice to what our schools and as I said to you earlier on, the environment that you set them up in is so important. So, the government has to do with that. They are involved in that. The type of schools that we have. How can we ensure that our schools are ready for our children, and even so our teachers, supporting our teachers through the schools, through these trainings, and even furthering studies to be ready.
Wonderful. Smiso for Minister of Education.
Yo, what a promotion, hey? I think I've still got a long way to go, but what a promotion. And I'm just
be prepared to vote.
Yeah.
Be prepared to vote. I'll go to the last question. Otherwise, I know we're gonna be here forever.
We capable. All good.
So the last question would be for someone who wants to pursue a career in education. What would you say to them? In closure,
I would definitely ask if you want to become a teacher. Maybe let me change my body language so it shows that I'm considering you in answering this. If you want to become a teacher, or you want to be in the education space, in whichever form or shape, I think ask yourself the first question, which is, am I passionate about the space, and am I ready for what's to come? Because I also feel like people take teaching as a backdrop. It's like, oh, I can always do about teacher, I'll be a teacher, and underestimate the intensity that it comes with, and also just the requirement that it comes with. So ask yourself, am I passionate about this career, and can I give myself a chance, and do I see myself being a fundamental role player in the space, and if your answer is no, then you need to go back to the drawing board of what you are passionate about, because we don't have to have everyone being a teacher. There's purpose and there's gifts instilled in us for different spaces and for different reasons.
That's true.
So ask yourself, am I passionate about this space? Is this the space that I'm called into? So consult with your beliefs and who you believe in, and navigate to say, is this the space that is meant for me? In as much as journalism was my first choice, but education found me, really. Once I was in, I asked God, I said, but God, is this where I'm meant to be? And he revealed to me in so many ways that this is exactly where you're supposed to be. And that really drove the passion, because after realizing that, no, I actually have so much passion for this, I then was driven by the fact that actually I also belong here. So ask about your belonging, in that, do you belong in the space of education? Because it does come with its load. It comes with its load.
Oh, it does.
It comes with its load, and it's very
everything does.
Everything does. So really, are you passionate about the space? And is this the space that you are called into? And I think the very, very last thought that you can put for yourself is, are you willing? And if you are willing, if there's just the willingness, everything else will follow and fall into place. Because the best thing, and this is a secret to people who want to become a teacher and are enrolling currently in institutions, and even for the existing teachers, maybe a reminder, because you would already know as a teacher, the best skill to have as a teacher is having a teachable spirit.
Teachable spirit.
A teachable
Wonderful.
spirit as a teacher will take you a long way. It's taken me so far. As I said to you earlier on, I'm still learning. I'm still finding my feet in many other, spaces within that involve my teaching skills and my teaching practices. But the teachable spirit is what's pushing me. So have a teachable spirit, and you will most certainly belong in the teaching space.
A teacher with a teachable spirit has spoken. Thank you so much. You've said a mouthful. You've said so many things, and I like how you just tabled these concepts and tabled the journey narratively, even in a way that even someone who may not be wanting to pursue a career in education, they have taken something that they can apply in their lives.
Absolutely.
Because I believe education is just life. It's just about life.
Ooh, I love that. Education is life.
I'm reminded of the a conversation I had with Professor Pageng, and she had said that I was asking just about her journey in mathematics, and this is something that she also says in broadcasts whenever she's invited, that mathematics is not about the numbers, or at least primarily. But mathematics is about problem solving. And now if you're talking problem solving, that's something that in life we do on a daily basis, aware or not aware. The fact that you wake up, you are feeling, let's say, exhausted, and then you are contemplating, should I make the bed now? Should I brush my teeth?
Of my life, girl.
When it's a problem, in your mind, the fact that you get up and choose one of those things, you've just solved a problem. Anyway, I'm just trying to say that. So then I wouldn't have had to want to pursue education for me to have something that I can take out and apply in my life. So hence I'm saying you've said a mouthful, there's a portion for everyone in this.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for sharing that journey, and thank you for watching. And I just want you to remember, if you've missed anything from what she has said, have a teachable spirit. And that will take you a long way in your profession, in your career, in your business. And that's something that I'm also really aligned with, having a teachable spirit. Because also as a businesswoman, you can either feel like you're the boss, you don't need to know anything more, or you know more than those who are in corporate. The same way corporate people think they know everything than those who are in business.
Look, I think at this
especially
point,
depending on the ladder. Actually every space, because even in church, deaconess, sons, anyway, pointies, have a teachable, it's actually biblical, have a teachable spirit. But thank you so much. This was the very first segment. I think we started on a high note, and you're going to be excited again to meet us on the, when's the next one again? Should be the 24th, and we'll be talking with Annelise Chambers. She is a manager at it's actually a dermatology clinic in Somerset West. We're talking skin cancer. I actually can't wait. We're going to be diving into skin cancer. So please do tune in. But for today, thank you so much. And this was ProfessionXplore Series 2025 with
Can
Smiso,
I jump
Sikakane.
in, please, and say thank you so much. I have the privilege of knowing you, just beyond, strength within a woman. I want to say it in full because, come on, strength within a woman of strength who identified and who acknowledges other women of strength. You are gifted, my friend. You are very gifted.
Amen.
And this path that you have created for so many women to come onto this platform and tell their stories will be a path that grows, a path that flourishes, and a path that is bigger than you, because you decided to be big in it. And I just want to say thank you so much for creating this platform where I get to share a bit of my strength and how I navigated my journey as a master of education. But more so, I wanted to say big ups to you, and all the best. And I know that going forward, onwards and upwards, friend.
Onwards and
upwards, my love.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. God willing, we'll take this further. So
Absolutely.
thank you very much. And that's it from us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
You be humble and you be authentic. Nobody can be you the way that you can be you, and nobody can bring what you bring to the table the way that you bring it. If you stay in your lane and you do you,